back to your question of what ignited the passion, I think a lot of people say teachers change their students' lives, but for me it was the other way around.
Wow.
As I got close to the kids in my Orang Asli community and the community themselves, I saw learning, I saw education from a very different perspective altogether. That made me rethink what I was there to do. That made me rethink how was I approaching teaching and learning and education. That made me change everything that I was living, and that is where the passion came from.
Hello and welcome to episode 1 now. Jom Lepa. And today we're continuing our education mini-series,
Collaboration with
Asli. Let's go. This is actually our first big collaboration. And we want to thank Asli for, giving this opportunity for us to collaborate with them.
Asli. Who's Asli?
Asli. Asli.
Original.
Bukan original. So Asli is an acronym, Asian Strategy and Leadership Institute. So they are a think tank. So they're more focused on nation building. So they give a lot of talks on nation building and leadership. So the reason why we approach them is because it's a part of nation building. Yeah. So this education. So about this mini series, right? So we created this mini series because we want to talk about reforms on education in this country. Because we felt that at the end of the day, it is quite frustrating, education. Asyik dapat budget lebih je, tapi tak dapat dilaksanakan dengan betul lah. Yeah.
You think education in Malaysia right now is not doing well?
Could be better. It could be better. That's all I can say. It could be better. But we have a guest hari ni.
That's serious story.
Yeah, we have a guest yang memang betul-betul kuat cakap pasal education. Dia seorang aktivis. Dia pernah mengajar dengan orang asli. And he is quite working with a lot of agencies, especially with KPM, to improve the gap for education. So, without further ado, please welcome Samuel Saya.
Hey guys. Thank you for having me.
No worries. It's finally really good to have you here, man. Like, tak ada tahun lepas lagi nak ajak.
Super lah itu.
Korang agak FFK kan, aku macam balik, alamak tak jadi. I think we supposed to have it at the end of last year kan?
Yeah.
Okay. But definitely a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Itulah, Samuel has been very busy with a lot of, with connecting with agencies and trying to create better plans for our education. So Samuel, like what have you been up to lately, so far?
Well, first of all, just call me Sam. I think that'll be fine.
Okay, Sam. Okay.
Kita santai-santai.
Betul.
Kan? So what I've been up to lately, I think there's a few things I've been working on. So currently my position allows me to work with different CSOs, different foundations, and also the Ministry of Education as we work towards, I think one of the key areas that we're working towards right now is addressing learning loss and also learning poverty. As you all may know, that the recent PISA scores was not
Merangsangkan.
tidak merangsangkan,
Okay.
not very flattering how we have performed. And I think what I'm doing right now is also playing a part in bolstering the Ministry of Education's initiatives to improve learning outcomes in schools. So yeah, I've been all over the place, but I think always happy to share, always happy to speak to you guys. I think what you guys are doing with
Jom
Lepa is actually fantastic. I think what you're trying to do in this conversation is to make education or topics yang berat yang heavy, yang complex, pasal education ni sebagai satu benda yang boleh everybody enjoy, everybody listen to, everybody participate in. And by participation, I think some of the basic form of participation is listening.
Yes.
Speaking about it. And I think to create more awareness towards the state of education in this country and what we all can do together to help improve the state of education.
Correct. Yeah. We will try to make it fun lah.
Yep.
Yeah. I hope you guys find it fun.
I think if I can say one of the recent achievements or one of the big projects I'm working on right now is we just launched a teacher professional development application, a mobile application. It's called Ladap Plus. It's funded by Sam Darby Foundation and a few other CSOs as well, coming together. So the idea is to make teacher professional development available to every teacher in Malaysia on their phone. I think bila kita tengok mengenai kursus cikgu kan, you guys have been in school kan, kalau biasa cikgu pergi kursus, kena pergi in person, pergi seminggu, 2 minggu, ganggu instructional practices dalam kelas, masa kelas terganggu dan sebagainya.
Betul.
So what we want to do is to make teacher professional development something that teachers can do on the go.
Right.
Because I've been a teacher for about 10 years and I understood that bukannya cikgu tak nak develop diri mereka sendiri, sebenarnya tak ada masa. Tak ada masa. So the idea behind the app is to make, so we adapted the concept of micro learning. Instead of doom scrolling, if you're familiar with it, so macam like TikTok kan, kita scroll tak ke mana. So why don't we scroll on content that can help us learn something? So we break down content into more digestible formats. The app also allows teachers to have like a platform to have discussions and discourse about what they're learning. But the key focus about the app is implementation. I think we've also been, if you're talking about policies, you're talking about a lot of other things, but biasanya rancangan tu gempak, program tu ataupun produk tu nampak sangat hebat, tapi implementation tak sampai.
Betul.
So what we are focused on through this application is quick learning, a learning that's more santai, more relaxed, something that teachers can do on the go and implement immediately. And I'm proud to say that in sebulan setengah with the launch of the application, we have almost 15,000 teachers on the application already.
So the application is out now already.
It's out now. Teachers are already using it. We have to hold back a little bit. We were not expecting this much of a response. Sebab kita punya expectation actually by the end of this year, it's only 5k teachers. Tapi sekarang ni by a month and a half, 15k is a good problem to have. But I think that a problem, but correct. But I think that shows that, you know, cikgu kita memang sangat berminat untuk develop themselves.
Betul.
Memang berminat untuk to do their best for their students. And I'm glad that the application that we have just launched is contributing towards that.
Wow.
I mean that's great lah. I mean, speaking myself from a perspective of a taekwondo coach, but I'm always thinking like if I'm teaching something and it doesn't work, I'm just curious, what can I do to make it better? And like having that resource is actually great for teachers juga lah.
Yep. You know what? It's quite funny. I have been thinking about this like last year. I actually for my ENT for my business course my business subject that I was taking in UITM, I somewhat developed the same concept.
Right.
But I guess you're doing it more better.
I mean, micro credentials, right? That's the thing. And I think if you have technology at the core of it, it allows whatever learning experience to be more individualized.
Yeah, correct.
More at your own pace. So we are trying to capitalize on that. And hopefully, I think, looking at how it's growing so far, we are hoping to bring in, because the app is free, we are not making any money off of it because the organization is a non-profit.
Right.
So we're just going to reach out to as many teachers as possible. That's the aim, man.
Well, I really hope that app really does go well, man.
Thank you.
I rasa macam kalau, I think that could be the biggest game changer. I think the biggest game changer sekarang yang benda kecil kan.
Yep.
So hopefully this can go to a dynamo effect.
Hopefully.
So apa ni, that's really nice what you do right now.
This is great. I mean, he's doing a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean nak cakap dengan ni pun susah. Ni macam tahap YB dah ni.
I sometimes forget, right? I think we were having conversations pre-recordings like, what did I do recently? Oh yeah, I know. There's something recently. We are also, I think, another key initiative that I'm part of. It's called the Malaysian Teacher Prize.
Right. Yes.
So we are launching our opening applications on the 1st of April. Just for context untuk pendengar. So I was the top 10 finalists in 2020 of the Global Teacher Prize. So the Global Teacher Prize is known as the Nobel Prize for teachers. So the idea behind the creation of it's called prize philanthropy. It's a thing right now. It's called prize philanthropy. The idea is based on the research, which where evidence show that the higher the status of teachers in society, the better the learning outcomes. And I think if we go back to the time of my parents or your grandparents and all of that, pada waktu itu status cikgu dalam masyarakat tinggi.
Sangatlah.
Doktor ke hakim ke dan sebagainya. Kalau cikgu memang dalam kampung, dalam community, semua orang respect. It's not so surprising, but it's also like surprising. Actually, there is a direct relation tau. Bila pekerjaan itu dipandang tinggi oleh masyarakat, status pekerjaan itu tinggi di masyarakat, it gains respect, immediately it translates to better student outcomes. So what we are trying to do to the Malaysia Teacher Prize is, of course, to raise the teaching profession to be a profession of choice. We have seen that teaching has, over the years, over the last 10, 20, 30 years, has been a second choice punya profession. Where the best and brightest don't apply to be teachers, and the best and brightest don't stay in the teaching profession. a lot of research has been done about this, but we saw that we had a role to play to bring that into Malaysia, to raise the teaching profession, to raise the status of teachers through the Malaysia Teacher Prize. This will be the third year of the prize. The first year was launched in 2022, yes. It was really small at that point. If I can share, we didn't have money to run it. We had zero money because when we speak about prize philanthropy or something like that, and at that point when we were doing the Malaysia Teacher Prize, it just came off after the pandemic. So it's very hard to gather funds to do it because baik kita bagi duit untuk murid-murid yang lebih memerlukan daripada create a prize event and all of that. If you get what I mean. So, but then we had the proof of concept that it works in the first year. The first year, the winner just spoke to her. Her name is Cikgu Anutra. Fantastic individual. She teaches in Tenom, Sabah.
Dalam kawasan pedalaman.
Pedalaman juga. She teaches robotics to golongan pedalaman. I think that is fantastic. Last year we had Cikgu Nazmi. This year we hope to find another outstanding teacher as well. But the best thing about the prize is besides raising status and of teachers in society is also to give teachers autonomy. Because in the teaching profession, there's always the idea that teachers are not given the trust and belief to do what they think is right. And through the prize, we give them 50,000 ringgit to do whatever they want with it. So the winner of the prize gets 50,000.
Wow. Before we move on to the second segment, kan?
Definitely. I think there are a few key points.
There's a lot of things, right? Yeah. But before we want to move on to your ideas on education, the problems that we're going to discuss, kan? What made you so passionate about education? Like the way that he was speaking is like it was super enthusiastic, full of. So like, what made you this person that you are today?
To be honest, Haikal, I never had this passion inside of me. I think. How do I put this? I never tak pernah terfikir my wildest dreams that I was going to be a teacher, nor was I into education or teaching. I grew up in my family background was quite okay. I went to school. I went to one of a very good school in Kuantan, did well in school and all of that. Tapi I think when I was in Form 4, my parents wanted me to do science, engineering, the usual lah kan. But at that point, I liked arts and literature. So I opted for teaching because I liked, for the wrong reasons altogether, because I liked languages and arts and music and all of that. So I thought that would be the best avenue for me to try to do it. And of course, I got a scholarship at the Ministry of Education, so it's all paid for. I was in Penang Island, so I'm quite familiar with where you're from, where you're studying. Then I was up north in University Utara Malaysia. But during that long period, this was 2005 sampai 2011, memang tak ada. Yes, I think what the education, the teacher training, the university education, the theory education that I was going through did prepare me with the methodologies, the theoretical knowledge of what a teacher should be, what a teacher should have. But it didn't give me that hard thing. I've shared this a lot. I believe the teaching profession is unique because it's a combination of having a lot of passion, a lot of desire, and also very high skills. You can't have one over the other, or you can't have very high skills as a teacher, tapi tak ada hati untuk
share benda tu.
To transform lives, because kita bekerja dengan manusia, dengan budak-budak kan. Kadang-kadang you cikgu terpandai dekat dunia pun, tapi you tak boleh connect dengan budak tu. Susah. They won't change. They don't see the meaning in what you're doing. You're sharing about your teacher and how your teacher did that to you as well. But at the same time, you can have all the passion in the world, but no skills. It doesn't work as well. Budak happy, motivated, tapi cikgu. So to have both. But all of that did not happen to me when I was learning to be a teacher. It happened to me when I was sent to this Orang Asli school. This was in 2012, January 2012. I was sent to this Orang Asli school in Pahang. Memang tak ada niat pun nak balik ke Pahang, walaupun saya memang asal daripada Kuantan Pahang, tapi dihantar ke situ. But for the very first time in my life, you read a lot about education inequity, education inequality and all of that, tapi tak pernah lupa kan. I finally see that, I saw that in front of my eyes. And I thought to myself, oh my God, this is completely different from what I've experienced, what I've read, what I've learned. I've never seen this ever. But back to your question of what ignited the passion, I think a lot of people say teachers change their students' lives, but for me it was the other way around.
Wow.
As I got close to the kids in my Orang Asli community and the community themselves, I saw learning, I saw education from a very different perspective altogether. That made me rethink what I was there to do. That made me rethink how was I approaching teaching and learning and education. That made me change everything that I was living, and that is where the passion came from. And I finally found how do I say? I finally found my part, my role in society in this world, and that's where all this passion comes from. I think that's extremely important, to just find your why and finding your reason.
That's that's okay. You know, like sometimes when you look at things from a different perspective, terus get it, kan? And then through the passion, jadi macam-macam dah juga sekarang.
Rasanya kadang-kadang, I think it's sometimes not that straightforward also. I never went looking for it. I think I was fortunate that it found me, but perhaps it all goes back to your principles and what you believe in. I believe that I must always I must try to do the right thing. And for me at that point in the Orang Asli school, memang senang kalau saya nak assimilate dengan budaya sekolah pada ketika itu. Budaya sekolah pada ketika itu memang low expectations. Masyarakat ataupun pendidikan orang asli, yes, we know access, infra dan sebagainya memang kurang. Tetapi one of the biggest challenge yang saya nampak pada ketika itu adalah stigma. Stigma, the surroundings, the school, terhadap capabilities of orang asli students. It was immediately associated that because you're orang asli, you should underperform. Because you're orang asli,
You shouldn't go far.
yes, you can't do as
Well, that's the ones that
exactly. And because we put these labels on them, it's very unfortunate, but because we put these labels on them, they believe it. My kids believe it, ya. Sebab budak-budak kan cakap kat saya tau, dia cakap, sir, kita tak boleh buat, kita orang bodoh. Can you believe that? They put themselves that. I remember, Haikal, that I nak bawa budak-budak I pergi sports, you a sports person kan, nak bawa budak pergi sports. Budak-budak akan tanya, sir, kita lawan Melayu ke? Sebab dia punya, dalam otak dia kan, orang luar, aka orang Melayu lah, because the nearest kampung is a Felda, is better than them. So there's this idea that they are beneath everybody else, they can't perform equally to them. So to challenge that stigma was super difficult. It's difficult, it was extremely difficult, it involved me, it involved building trust and all of that, but it's a long journey altogether. But I think continuously doing that with the community, that's what brought the passion.
But Sam, before we move on to the second section, right? Just want to touch one thing slightly, right? What did you make? Like, how did you change the student that mindset? You know, to make them believe in themselves, because like you just said, right? Without passion, it's hard for you to do something. But with skill, without passion, it's nothing. So how did you do that?
For me, it was, this is my experience. It could be different from everybody else or the same, I don't know. But I went in with, I think a lot of individuals, when I say go in or went in, they go into communities like this with a messiah complex, assuming that saya lah superhero yang akan datang mengubah hidup anda. My ways are better than yours. My ideologies are better than yours. If you go with that mindset to communities like this, that is, you cannot be, cara paling salah is to do it that way.
Right.
So go in with humility, go in with the idea that you're there to learn from them. And I always say this in wherever I go, it's not about what I did for them or I'm going to do for them, like what you said, it's what I'm going to do with them. So the idea of being inclusive, the idea of doing things together is extremely important. When you want ownership, you do it together. It's not like, I'm going to design this mega plan for you, inilah cara untuk transformasi pendidikan orang asli di kampung ini. You betul tak kira, but that's very wrong. So what I did was to involve them in that process. But it started off with basic gestures like visiting families, talking to them, building trust, this relationship building. And then I started involving parents in my classroom as well. I invited them into my classroom, see what I was doing. They were like, oh, Cikgu Sam is doing this stuff, Cikgu Sam is doing this with my kids, and then giving them opportunities to play a part in what I was doing. So it's the idea of doing it with them and not doing it for them.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing, man. I think we'll have a very fruitful discussion when we talk about the problems and reforms that we need in our country.
So we'll touch that in our second segment.
Yeah, we'll touch on that second segment. But thank you so much for sharing what ignites you, about your passion and also what you're doing right now. I think it's really, it's hard to summarize a lot, but I can say there's a lot of initiatives coming from you. So let's move on to the second segment where we talk about the current problems in our education system. So stay tuned. Right, welcome back to the episode where we're with Samuel Isaiah. Tadi panjang cerita lebar lah pasal dia punya initiative. And honestly, listening to your perspective and your motivation, it's really inspiring, man.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is my first time listening to it. The first time was me listening to how you drop out, but this is the first time I actually listened your actual motivation from it.
Right.
Yeah. So the second segment sekarang kita ke segmen kedua ni. So segmen kedua ni kita akan berbicara lah ataupun we'll just talk about current problems and also talk about what we can do about those problems. Okay. And I rasa masalah-masalah yang kita akan dibukakan nanti adalah masalah-masalah yang orang terfikir. Right? And I think these conversations must be we must have it now lah. Sebab kalau tak, siapa lagi nak buat kan? Betul. And what you said, Samuel, kita kena ada apa orang kata participation. So we have to listen and also talk about it. Okay. Jadi I think we'll start with the first question sebab Haziq tengah semangat gila ni.
Oh, I like this question. I think it relates back to my course actually. But I think before let's touch that, just a smart, what the heck? Small and short. Wow, I said smart. What the heck? Just a short.
Coin the term.
Yeah, I mean, smart. Smart. Okay, so that's a short. How do you feel? Just a smart for that. I said again. A short introduction about how you feel about Malaysia's education system is now. Is it doing good? Is it really bad? How do you feel about it?
I think obviously, you understand. Oh, smart. It has to be smart. It has to be smart. I would say, macam tak achieve its fullest potential. That's basically it. I think kita sebuah negara in a lot of fields pun quite the same. I think the sentiment is quite the same. That we have all the resources to be one of the best, if not the best, education systems within the region, but we are not. In fact, we are falling behind. So there is that rasa yang kecewa lah. Bila kita tengok badminton pun macam tu juga. Right? Nak sampai tapi tak capai. Tapi player dah bagus.
Betul.
It all comes from that high expectations. And I think sebagai rakyat Malaysia, we shouldn't lower our expectations. We must always strive to have the best. And
betul.
And education is one of it lah. Because as people always say, kan, education, if you want to change anything, you change it through education. So we should have. So yeah, that's my answer. We are not there yet, unfortunately.
Itulah, I have to agree with Samuel sebab macam bila I cakap dengan dengan orang biasa, I can see the potential. Cuma dia tak fikir jauh lah. They need to think a bit more.
But I mean, I must also say that the education landscape in Malaysia has changed drastically.
Betul.
There is this something called the democratization of education. Maksudnya untuk pendidikan pun sekarang ni ada pilihan. Kalau dulu pilihannya lebih kepada tertiary education, kan, you pergi private college ke, private university ke, local ke, abroad ke, and all of that. Sekarang ni dekat K-12 ataupun di primary and secondary education pun sudah ada. And lebih kepada ibu bapa sekarang more knowledgeable. Some would want to go towards a school that's more STEM oriented. Some would want to choose a school that is more religious oriented. Some would want a school that is more, language, like Chinese vernacular schools and all of that. So there is that choice. So in some ways, I think if we are going towards the idea, we always must look back at our public schools in Malaysia. I think there must be more efforts to ensure that even if there is a choice, public schools in Malaysia should be up there. that means we should not be short of quality and excellence in public schools. Iyalah ada private school, international school yang gempak-gempak dan sebagainya, resources berjuta-juta, whatever that is, but whatever it is, we need to ensure that our public schools must be of high quality, because it is a great equalizer.
Correct.
It is a space where everybody, regardless of all walks of life, can go into.
If anything, it should be the standard lah.
It should be.
the standard.
It should be the gold standard, or close to it. Certain countries are very drastic about this. For example, I think before this, in my time, tak ada pilihan untuk pergi ke sekolah swasta ataupun sekolah antarabangsa sebenarnya. Policy ni berubah. I think about 20 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. At that point, everybody, no matter how rich or how poor, you go to public schools. So that probably created that sort of like expectations, right, towards public schools, that public schools have to perform,
Right.
no matter what it had to perform. If you're looking at our neighboring country like Singapore, you have to go to public schools. Regardless, you have to go to public schools, unless your father is an expat ke apa ke dan sebagainya. But I think whatever it is, there should be a focus in the quality of our public schools. And I probably that relates to your question just now, you wanted a smart answer to, which is
Smart
you wanted a smart answer to, which is the state of our education in Malaysia. I recently had the opportunity to go to a public school, and bila I masuk lepas pagar tu, I just had a moment of reflection. Wow, zaman aku kat sekolah dulu, but as a student, at least 20 years ago, and now macam tak ada beza. It's the same, and that's not necessarily a good thing though. Things have changed so much over the past 20-25 years or so, but when you go to school, it still feels the same. Why? I mean, it's not just the infra or not just the facilities, but you see the same kind of papan tanda, you see the same kind of interaction that happens in school, you see everything, but the world has changed so much.
From outside.
Yes,
Yeah.
if you walk in to a top international school, you will immediately say, oh, patutlah sekolah power kan. It feels different, right? The energy is different, the school feels different altogether. But that's just a general perspective that I have. Perhaps, what is your experience then? Yeah, I mean, if you guys left school probably about 5 years ago,
But we left, I think 4-3 years ago.
yeah,
Yeah.
about them.
Sure.
I think
You're in your final year of uni now, right?
you are.
So about 5 years ago, lah kan?
Betul.
Yeah.
For me, it was a bit more because I went to homeschool when I was Form 5.
See.
Yeah.
Okay.
But study.
Okay.
And then I just
Okay.
yeah.
Actually, talking about schools, I just went to my school 3 days ago.
How do you feel? Do you feel anything changed? Like,
well, okay. Like, I'll just give you a bit of my background. I wasn't from public school. I was from private school lah.
Okay.
Sekolah berintegrasi.
Okay.
So my school dia campur aliran agama dengan sastra pula.
Sorry.
Bukan. The national curriculum.
Okay.
Yeah. So bila I masuk balik sekolah tu, a lot has changed.
okay.
But when it comes to the type of conversation, some similar from a few years ago, but some has changed as well. And I think that one thing that I see is this huge generational gap when it comes to what kids are talking now. Sebab kalau dulu, yalah, during my time, I remember we were talking about like, I guess what's happening in the world, and then sekarang ni dia cakap pasal TikTok, the trends, and I guess that's what my circle back then.
If I can define the question a bit more, it is okay. How do you see? Aku boleh interview korang kan? How do you see? What is learning to you?
Oh, okay.
How do you learn something? Like right now, right? You've gone through 12 years of primary, secondary education. Right now, you're in university.
Yeah.
How do you learn best?
I think for me it's just exploring.
Okay, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if you ever heard this term, PBL. So problem based.
Problem.
So like every time I see a problem and every time I see a problem and I immediately want to solve it, and every time when I want to solve it, I always learn something new.
Okay.
That's basically.
So the process of going through it, there's a lot of design thinking elements in there. Maksudnya you design something, you iterate, you try it out, tak jadi, you tukar, you go and discuss, you go and do some research, you come back again with a better product, then you come up with a better prototype and all of that. That is the current way of learning. But you just left school 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Was that the core of the learning that was provided to you?
Oh, I don't think so.
Exactly, that's my point, right? That's my point. You see, the way students are learning have changed drastically over the years. Kids right now, kids who are just born 5 years ago per se, or 7 years ago, just entering year 1, their view of how they learn has completely changed. And if our teachers and our system still wants to teach the way they were taught, their fathers were taught, buka buku, salin dan sebagainya, hafal dan sebagainya, school is going to be, it's not going to be meaningful. You don't feel satisfied going to school. Because budak-budak zaman sekarang ni, what I have observed is that kalau benda tu tidak menarik, bukan menarik perhatian, benda tu tak bermakna untuk dia orang, dia tak minat. Langsung tak minat, langsung tak minat, tak pergi. They lose interest, they immediately don't want to get involved in it. And then they find other ways of learning. So I think at the crux of it is, how are schools more meaningful? How is school meaningful or not? So to another answer to your smart question is meaning. Are schools meaningful to students or not? Back in the day, saya tak ada pilihan. Tak pergi sekolah kena lempak. That is basically it. Kena pergi sekolah juga. Discipline and all of that. Now kids ada autonomy. Dia boleh lawan cakap mak bapak dia, and all of that is very different already.
Actually, now you mention it kan, I think sebab macam pelajar-pelajar sekarang, diorang they have more access to the internet.
Of course.
Kan, so macam bila diorang nak cakap, kalau dulu kita cakap I want to be a doctor, but now to be more specific, I want to be a neurosurgeon. Kan. So like the way of teaching has to be different.
Of course, I would say the way of learning.
Oh, sorry, learning.
And on top of that, we're talking about teaching. The role of a teacher has significantly changed also. Back in the day, it was more towards giver, receiver. The teacher gives, the student receives. That's it. It's always one way. And then we went on to 2 ways. Right now, a teacher has to be a coach. A teacher has got to be a facilitator. A teacher has got to be a mediator, a social worker also in that sense. The role of a teacher is very dynamic these days now. That's why we need individuals with high skills. So teachers need to realize that their role is actually very different already right now. So it's not one way. It's not, I know everything, I'm going to give it to you, you digest it and answer the exam. Not anymore. It's a process of creation and all that. And I think that is fundamentally what we need to fix. The teaching and learning. Or in the, kalau bahasa pendidikan dia adalah instructional practices in the classroom. That needs to be, if not whatever policy lah, kalau nak tekap pasal PBS ke, assessment ke, pendidikan abad ke-21 ke dan sebagainya, lantak lah. Tapi at the end, how are we learning? And are teachers teaching the way students are learning? That's something that we need to figure out. And in general, a lot of us can say it's not there yet. Yeah,
It's not there yet.
it's not there.
Faham. I feel like, you have any thoughts about it?
Yeah. But actually for me like, I don't know if you share yours first, and then I'll read it back. Yeah. When ask the question.
Actually, talking about learning kan, I always feel like whenever back in school, I rasa macam it's always like you said, the receiver and giver. I've never had the experience to, actually explore my interests in classroom.
Same.
Yeah, like I think we were always given this doctors, but I never thought I could explore the world more, and I think that's why I enjoy a lot of debating, because I get to explore different things. I think that's the main fun thing about going to that. But back to that, itulah, I feel like there's a lot of things we should capitalize nowadays, especially with tech, and then we should definitely learn more about what's happening around the world rather than just just 5 years back.
Yeah, I mean, just to add on about that, I think teachers also should realize that it's not a matter about you being a subject matter specialist alone. You can know everything there is about chemistry, but if you don't teach the way your students want to learn, it's pointless. At the end of the day, they are not going to be able to digest it. And what you spoke about is about finding identity as well. That's extremely important. How do you create the next best scientist in Malaysia or the greatest social innovator that can solve social issues in Malaysia is to plant the seed of bagi diorang peluang untuk bertanya, bagi diorang untuk reflect, untuk like, aku nak buat apa sebenarnya ni? Like, that process must happen in that classroom to find yourself, to find your passion. I think my story mengenai how after I went to the Orang Asli school, baru I'm like, oh my God, I finally figured it out, right? That aha moment, right? What if that aha moment could have happened sooner in the classrooms? Provide students with more opportunity to find that moment. It's a process of discovery, and that should happen more frequently. I believe, because the best minds in the world, the greatest innovators in the world, they always find meaning in what they're doing. They figure it out. And I think schools should be the place for that, for kids to figure it out.
Faham? Actually, I want to touch a bit on that because this relates to another question I want to ask you. But before I ask you the question, I want to give you my idea on it.
Go ahead.
Because recently last semester I studied we have this. So I'm studying engineering.
Okay.
But we have certain courses that we have to take that's outside of our own faculties. We call it CAF. Khusus elective luar faculty. Yeah, so
It's like a mobility program or something.
I don't know, it's just in the same university,
Okay.
but like a different faculty.
Okay.
Yeah, different course lah. So like I studied comparing education systems, and actually had in our last class I actually had a bit of a disagreement, but also a discussion with my lecturer. She's a lecturer from Faculty of Education, so she teaches teaching, right?
In UM.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've had this discussion about national high stakes exams.
Okay.
So in this case, in Malaysia, we have SPM. Now not anymore, but PT3 or PMR and UPSR. So the cup of tea, the idea that I have is that I feel like we should have these these national high stakes exams, because one of the topics that we discuss in comparing education systems is that thing. Certain education systems don't have this national high stakes exams. They just like they learn at school and then they graduate. And then that's it lah. But some other you have to like kena ada national high stakes exams. Example is like Singapore.
Of course.
But like Singapore is one of the best in the world, definitely. Like PISA scores on right on top. Tapi Finland pun ada. Tapi diorang tak ada national high stakes exams. Very minimal tests and exams. But we compare the both of their employment rates. There's a big difference. Finland's employment rates are much lower as compared to Singapore's. And I give my cup of tea, which is saying that this is due to the fact that they have national high stakes exams. Because you need to have like at least a yardstick lah on measuring how students are doing and everything. But that's the idea of what it is, you know. Exams is to see how our students are doing so that we can gauge how they do in work, right? That's what it's for. It's its function. But I think there's one more thing that's really important, which is what you mentioned earlier, giving meaning to what you are learning. Because, you know, I learned this in sports psychology as well. When you have a goal, you don't want to set one goal and that's the end. But like, kalau boleh want to go to that goal with several other mini goals, you know. So having this, I said to my lecturer lah, kena ada national high stakes. She was like, oh tak suka lah sebab kan. She didn't like it. She was like, oh why we should have national high stakes? Nanti stress. Nanti macam budak-budak pun tak suka nak belajar sebab dia kena sebab exam saja. But I told her, okay, for me, my own personal experience and from my friends' experiences from me watching my friends, I can see that maybe form 1, form 2 main-main. Masa form 3, PT3. Tiba-tiba dia jadi disiplin, tiba-tiba dia punya exam semua skor dia naik. I can tell you, form 1, form 2, I failed BM because I just came back from the US at that time. But form 1, form 2, memang fail BM teruk lah. But then because of PT3, I got C. At least that's better than nothing, right?
Okay. I'm judging you right now. I'm kidding.
Okay lah, but for SPM, I didn't take SPM atau HSC, but I did better lah because there was a meaning behind my SPM. If I don't score my SPM, then I won't be able to graduate my degree kan, because it's University Awam. So I had meaning behind the SPM, so I studied hard and I got A for BM. But at the time I was dah lama dah kat Malaysia, so macam the bahasa Melayu tu dah diserap lah semuanya. So and I learned how to learn better. Okay. So I think that these exams give students meaning into study. Like And that meaning gives them a drive to learn better. And I want to ask your opinion. What do you think? Do you should have UPSR again? Do you think P3 is important? Lagi-lagi the fact that tiba-tiba ada COVID, tiba-tiba habis, no more exam. Until now, like why didn't they reincorporate it? You know, I want to hear your opinion on it.
I think you yourself answered a lot of the questions already when you were comparing different education systems, South Korea, Singapore, Finland. In the fact that I think Singapore, although they have a lot of high stakes exams, they are also moving towards lesser high stakes exams. Recently, they just removed their primary level exams, where the students will be evaluated in different ways altogether. I think the future, generally, my opinion is the future is lesser high stakes exams, but there is still a need for high stakes exam. But how do you get there towards a system that is not towards very exam oriented is important. I think that's point number one. How gradually you get there. I think good education systems, they have a very clear understanding about the capacity of the system, the ability of the teachers, society's expectations. All of this needs to be taken into consideration before you switch. The countries like Singapore and South Korea, for example, in my opinion, diorang tak trigger happy sebab diorang tahu masyarakat diorang memang thrive dengan numbers, dengan driven by ranking, dengan driven by I'm better than you kind of thing. Memang tahu. So it's a step-by-step process. In comparison to Finland, their society's expectations is very different. When we talk about policies, I think it's also very important to look at culture. The culture in Scandinavian or Nordic countries, for example, it's very, they talk about, you tengok penjara dia orang pun you tahu. You pergi tengok penjara dia orang macam mana. It's not so much about it's not about hukuman, it's about correctional. So boleh balik, boleh keluar. It's very progressive. So masyarakat dia orang punya fikiran memang progresif. So assessment system pendidikan dia orang kena dengan masyarakat dia orang punya culture. I think for us, kita mungkin cepat sangat ataupun we never had a clear understanding about our society's expectations, our cultural expectations, because kita negara Asia, and negara Asia memang suka ranking the terms like tiger mom dan sebagainya. Memang is very Asian. It's a very Asian thing. But I think the future is lesser standardized exams, because although standardized exams, I think it's great to come up with it allows you to look at students' performance in general as a whole country and all of that. But unfortunately, standardized exams macam SPM dan sebagainya, dia tak boleh ukur aspek-aspek lain yang penting, terutamanya like critical thinking, collaboration, and all the things like, you guys designing a podcast, like all the other benda-benda spesifik yang wujud dalam proses buat podcast itu sendiri. Satu exam berdasarkan kertas memang sukar ataupun hampir mustahil untuk evaluate. Itu kekurangan dia. And I think I shared about this also in
On the lesson plan, is it?
on the lesson plan, and also on mainstream media, about falsafah pendidikan sesebuah negara itu. A country's educational philosophy, in Malaysia, if you have a chance to look at it, it talks about developing holistic individuals, jasmani, emosi, rohani, intelek dan sebagainya. There is that thing. So in order for us to, if we have that aspiration, we need an assessment system that has the ability to evaluate whether kita capai ke tak aspirasi itu. Before this, bila kita pakai standardized exam semata-mata ataupun nationwide SPM and all of that, kita tak boleh ukur aspek-aspek lain dengan efektif, or tak bagi enough prominence. Macam dululah in my time, kita ada seni ataupun sejarah buat folio. Tapi we all know folio tu is just at the side je. Yang penting is the exam, what you score in the exam. But in today's world, the folio would have been more important. Like right now, if I'm hiring for someone, I'm going to give you a task to do, right? I'm like, this is the problem. Design something for me, talk about it, and present it to me. All those skills would have been exercised when you were designing that folio. But in a standardized exam, it's very hard for you to look at that. So I think the direction towards a lesser standardized exams is important. But we can't run away from standardized exams, unfortunately. Because you nak pergi Ivy League University pun, you need great results.
Yeah.
Betul.
I had this experience of visiting this one of the best schools in the world. There's this competition that's called World Best Schools Award, and this school is in India. It's called the Riverside Learning Center. Their school is based on the fundamentals of design thinking. So it's called a design thinking school. Interestingly, the founder was not a teacher. She was an engineer, if I'm not mistaken, or an architect. So she knew about design thinking and the idea of like the iterating, coming up with prototypes, designing and all of that. And she took about 30 years, 20 plus years to build that school. But no matter what of how she was trying to build the education in the school, or how she was delivering education or learning to students, the end goal remains the same. The end goal is that budak-budak yang masuk sekolah dia kena pergi universiti terpower dalam dunia. So no matter what, I think the end goal is quite clear. Kita nak murid-murid kita ataupun hasil keluaran sistem pendidikan dekat negara kita kompetitif di peringkat global. Memang. Tapi how do we get there? And that's why I'm going back to my first point. How are we teaching? How is the learning process in the classroom? Because I believe, and this is not just based on what I've read, this is based on what I've done also, that if you invest in the process of teaching and learning, you ensure that the teaching and learning process is meaningful. When you were in school, Form 1, Form 2, I would have made sure if you were my student, you akan buat project ni, you akan buat create benda tu, create ni. You were learning. So you are not just motivated by the exam. You were motivated by the learning itself, of what you were producing day in and day out. You would see yourself growing every year. If you follow that process, you bagi budak-budak, I believe, strongly believe, you bagi budak-budak exam jenis macam mana pun, dia boleh jawab. They have the ability to be critical.
Oh, sebab because of that learning process tu.
Correct.
Sebab diorang dah
Already
lalui
experienced.
gitu. Faham.
Right now, let's say like you guys are running this program at podcast, and you have a business model for it, right? And you evaluate the funding that you receive, how much you're paying for, recording, blah, 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 and all of it. Those are fundamentals of
Business.
accounting or business already. But you're doing this in a project. You would have done it already. That is my point. That the learning process has to be clearly defined. And of course, then the assessment system.
Faham.
Yeah. But I would not discount your point, saying that exams are a motivation. It is a motivation to a lot of people. It is something that we have to take it seriously. But I would also say, equally, an equal motivation to the exams, equal motivation should also come from learning. You must, or you should, be motivated to learn, to explore, and shouldn't just be motivated to the exam. And that goes back to what the teachers are teaching, how the system is designed.
Oh, that's quite an answer, man.
This.
Yeah.
It relates to the first thing that I was talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Which is basically learning, like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
You really have to highlight the fact that motivation has to come from motivation to learn itself.
Yeah. And I think when Sam, you said like motivation, I think we shouldn't look at education as a exam-based system. In a way, like it's always about exams itself. And I say there's always other ways to find motivation for you to explore, learn, and be that.
Sini lah kita balik kampung je. Oh, dah belajar PN. Macam ni result awak? Result tanya result je gitu.
Yes. But I think I would not discount that, because the fundamentals of foundational stuff, you really need to be good at math. But how you be good at math is the question. Tapi sebab bukan ramai lah, ada yang question dia, kita kena pergi sekolah, kena have fun, kena seronok. I said, ya betul. Tapi kena ada tangible outcomes juga.
Betul.
Mesti ada tangible outcome. You tak boleh seronok pergi sekolah. Because at the end of the day, your kids or you are going to be the one that's going to fight climate change. If your math is not good enough, how would you know to measure, okay, dalam masa 10 tahun, kalau suhu kita meningkat macam ni, paras laut naik macam, you tak ada math, you can't solve that problem. You can't solve that problem with motivation and passion alone. You can't. You still need that skills. But schools need to be doing that. But of course, it's challenging lah. Schools is, I think, sangat mencabar sebab kita kena cakap, kita kena ada budak yang ada values, kena ada empathy and all of that. I think although we are going a bit over time, but I think that also shows that education is not just the responsibility of schools. Going back to your analysis about countries like Finland, it is also due to the fact that community involvement, parental involvement is extremely high. There is a lot of engagement between parents and school. They are involved at all levels. There is active involvement. Is that something that we are doing? So it is a whole society approach. Like the famous saying lah, it takes a village to raise a child kan. So everybody needs to be involved. So that needs to change as well. I think the part that I've been focusing a lot on is the quality of teaching and learning, because that's where I see one of the biggest needs are. But there are also other aspects to it, including parental involvement.
Phew. Wow. What do you think about that, man?
It's great that we asked the question. PT3, UPSR, yes or no, and then we got the answer.
Yeah.
What is the answer? I think I don't have a direct answer to that.
No, it's okay. The answer is going back to, the answer is basically that national high stake exams should be reduced in the future, but then the way that we do is correctly in a gradual manner, and it should be highlighted that exams are a good motivation, but it should be better that the motivation is beyond exams itself.
It shouldn't be looked at. I think another thing when we speak about assessments, we always speak about it in isolation. It shouldn't be. Quality teaching and learning, teacher training, parental engagement, assessments, they're all part of the big picture. You see, kita tak boleh cakap, okay, assessment ni satu je nak tukar, tak boleh. Tukar satu, kena tukar semua. In order for that particular assessment model to work, you need to look at all different factors as well. Yeah. But I think the future is that, definitely. Because these skills are extremely important. Critical thinking, problem solving, values, all of these skills need to be exercised in school.
I think this actually will be a nice segment for the third segment.
Sure.
Sebab nanti kita akan cakap pasal lost generation pula.
Okay.
Okay? So tadi kita cakap pasal national exams, the meaning of learning. Man, this really feels like a very enriching episode already, man. Yeah.
We can do 3 hours of this if we have to type, but no, unfortunately.
Tapi kalau kita, you can always invite us on the lesson plan.
Sure.
If you have time, lah.
Sure, definitely. I think my partner, my podcast partner, he's the numbers guy.
Yeah.
So he will exactly give you the numbers. Like we were talking about the counselors and all of that earlier on. He has all of that.
Alright. Maybe we can talk about that. But it's okay. I think we've done the second segment already. We've talked about two problems already, which is the problem of learning and also the problem of having national high stake exams. Okay, so the next segment ni kita nak cakap pasal the lost generation. Okay, see you then. Welcome back to the third segment of the podcast, and we're super excited to talk about this part, right? Sebab tadi kita cakap pasal learning, kita cakap pasal exams. Sekarang ni kita nak cakap something more crucial and urgent jugalah. Sebab apa ni, kita dah tahu, I think it's been like 3 to 4 years lah lepas since COVID kan. So baru ni
2019 kan? Okay lah, 2020.
2020. So kita
Fourth year already.
Fourth year already?
Yeah.
So it's been 3 years. We left out 2021 or 2022?
PKP last 21
You're good.
It's been
2 to 3 years lah.
2 to 3 years lah.
Yeah, it was 2 to 3 years. So this segment ni kita nak sentuh tentang the lost generation.
Okay.
Itu apa lost generation ni kan? The lost generation ni adalah pelajar-pelajar yang tercicir lah daripada kesan COVID dan apa ni, how unprepared I guess the education system was back then, right? Sebab orang-orang macam ni, diorang tercicir could be in many other reasons lah, but that was translated during the PISA results, and we just had a conversation about it, right? Like even I think a 15-year-old they couldn't read properly, right? So like how worried should we be about these people?
I think what we were speaking about was just to elaborate more, to give context, is something called learning poverty, which is the ability. So PISA actually did a study to understand the ability of children at the age of 10 or 15. 15 is for the PISA test and all of that, to be able to understand a simple paragraph or text. And I don't want to say the numbers, but we did not do so well. There are a lot of reasons behind this, and one of this is obviously the pandemic. Kita ada lebih kurang setahun ataupun 2 tahun di mana sekolah tidak dapat memberikan pendidikan seperti biasa, and kita ada isu seperti akses kepada pendidikan in certain parts of the country and all of that. I think we should be worried, obviously, and it is also come to light that literacy is also a big issue right now. Bila kita cakap mengenai kececeran, by definition of Ministry of Education, ada berbagai jenis kececeran. So kececeran yang pertama bila datang sekolah, cicir. Kececeran kedua is that they are unable to, that means cicir literasi lah. That means they cannot keep up as they go up tingkatan ataupun darjah dan sebagainya. So I think this is a big issue. This is a big issue that we must address as a nation. Sebab bila kita tak, this is a clear indicator where we are failing certain sectors of society in Malaysia. Sesetengah murid di negara kita kalau tak boleh baca, can you just imagine that? There are some kids, 10-year-olds can't read. And if we don't address this now, by the time they get to 12, it's just going to be harder and harder and harder. It's just going to be an impossible task for them to catch up. And because the numbers are so significant, what is expected of the government and the Ministry of Education right now, I think PMX pun sendiri baru-baru ni kata dia merujuk pada PISA scores di mana in ASEAN we are not the best, we are not the lowest actually, tetapi we are the worst performers. Tapi by ranking, I think in ASEAN we are second. Tapi kita punya drop paling banyak. Kita punya drop dalam PISA score sebenarnya lagi banyak daripada countries like Philippines. Naik scores dia tau, naik sikit, tapi kita punya drop paling mendadak. And if you're looking at how much we have invested, blah, 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 the numbers don't make sense at all. So there's huge cause to worry. So I think this warrants for immediate action by the Ministry of Education and by the Malaysian government in general to address students who can't read and write properly.
Itulah apa ni. Where does this problem that you see stem from, and what do you think we should do about it?
It's a good question. I think it obviously stems from the pandemic, but that's just one reason altogether. But I think, this is just my personal opinion, one of the main reasons why is that there are, number one is school autonomy and teacher autonomy. Different schools in Malaysia have got different needs altogether. Different students, different communities, different needs. I thought in an Orang Asli school, another teacher might be teaching in KL tapi dengan masyarakat di PPR dan sebagainya, ataupun some yang mengajar di Shah Alam. Ada sekolah jenis lain yang mempunyai keperluan yang berbeza. Apa yang sedang difokuskan dan patut difokuskan oleh Ministry of Education is more teacher quality, for them to be able to come up with contextualized solutions ataupun solusi yang bersesuaian dengan konteks mereka. I think over the years, banyak solusi yang diperkenalkan adalah lebih sifat top down or very generic, one size fits all per se. Kita ada satu program besar-besaran, semua sekolah di Malaysia semua pakai model yang sama, delivery yang sama, measurement yang sama, everything the same. And that could be a reason why it does not really address issues yang very localized. So I think that is one of the things that could be the reasons that contributed to this. And a lot of this came to light during the pandemic. Apabila sekolah yang contohlah sekolah yang tak ada akses kepada internet, immediately cikgu tak tahu nak buat apa-apa. It's either whether they are not trained to be proactive or to be able to problem solve or create programs that address the situations, or they were not given the autonomy and the resources to do so. I think that is the problem. The Ministry of Education government has been addressing it, but not enough. I think what we need to do is to encourage more autonomy to schools, more autonomy to teachers, to actually design solutions that work for them. One of the more proactive moves that was done by the Ministry of Education is they abolished something called the Linus program. It's called the Program Literasi and Numeracy. I think back in the day, by 5-6 years ago, I mean, they had a nationwide literacy program that every school had to do. But although the program was quite effective in certain ways, it did not allow schools to actually tweak it or change it to the needs of their students. It's very prescriptive. So bila dia prescriptive sangat, dia kalau budak tu cara belajar dia lain ke ataupun masalah community tu lain tu, susah, very hard to change. So I think these are areas that we need to focus on. The second key area that I think there was a problem that was highlighted through this is how we are, in my opinion, underutilizing technology. If you had the chance to actually look at the recent policy document that was that the Ministry of Education came out with, it's called Dasar Pendidikan Digital Negara. Memang it highlighted a lot of areas that the Ministry of Education is going to work with, but one of the key areas that attracted me the most is the data. Did you know that in Malaysia, students are 3 times more proficient in technology, 2 to 3 times more proficient in technology than their teachers?
Oh,
Yes. So what does that say? In that sense, so in my opinion, to relate to your question about learning loss and learning poverty, is to be able to capitalize on the students' strengths, is to be able to capitalize on recent advancements in technology. And technology has got the ability to reach a lot of people. It has that ability to be able to, for you to cater to more individualized learning. Kita ada AI boleh upah kepada student yang ada level berbeza, minat yang berbeza dan sebagainya. I think we need to capitalize a lot on that. So using technology is one of it. So back to your question is those 2 things lah. Encourage schools and teachers to have more autonomy to design contextualized solutions that meet their needs, and also to capitalize on technology. Especially because the students are great with technology.
True. Actually, you told us about something you discussed. I don't know if we can touch it on this podcast or not, but you mentioned something about, kids, they can use technology to learn outside of schools, right? So you mentioned something about a TV program where students can learn.
Yes. TV. Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. I mean, that is one of the good initiatives that was done by the Ministry of Education, where they had like a TV channel for where they had live teaching and all. But I think one of the key parts I was missing from that is that there was like an engagement, students to get to engage and all that. But something that's more realistic, I think that should be addressed is the use of technology in schools. Until now, smartphones tak boleh pakai lagi kat sekolah. Walaupun setiap keluarga, hampir even community orang asli pun, every keluarga dah ada smartphone sendiri. Kenapa kat sekolah tak boleh pakai? It doesn't make sense to me. Of course, you can come up with regulations to regulate budak boleh pakai apa dalam kelas. Tapi kenapa macam criminalize sangat teknologi sebagai satu benda yang boleh menyesatkan budak-budak dan sebagainya sampai tak nak bawa ke classroom. I had this conversation with EdTech specialist a few months ago, and he asked me this basic question. Right? Sometimes these basic questions make you realize like, damn. He asked me, how many times in a day do you use Google? I said, well, damn, very hard to count. Right? A lot of times, right? How many times does a student use it in the classroom?
I think more than one. Yeah.
Less than once. Jarang. Kita jarang menggunakan benda-benda teknologi yang kita biasa guna dalam real life in the classroom. As a university student maybe lain lah kot kan. Maybe lain lah kot, tapi dekat classroom kan. If I was a teacher, I will probably right now, okay, sebelum kita start, I want all of you to Google this. What do you think about this topic? Share, discuss. Use the technology, it's in your hands. Basically, the library that you have to make a trip to the library back in the day, right now it's in your hands. Why are we not capitalizing on it? I mean, to have regulations about it, because kalau kita ada di primary school, you need to develop different skills, menggunakan tangan dan sebagainya. Tetapi, to have like a general ban towards the use of technology in the classroom, I think that's what makes us ke belakang lah. Ke belakang. Padahal kalau kita nak talk about ethical usage of technology and all of that, it should start in the classroom. Macam mana untuk menggunakan teknologi secara beretika, it can happen in the classroom. Learn in the classroom and all that. So I think that's the things that is something that I would change, of which I still don't understand why are we still not using it in the classroom.
I think maybe it's still the stigma kot. Macam diorang akan misuse the technology, or maybe they're not mature enough to use it.
I mean, but yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's very backward in that sense.
Betul.
Right? Kalau sebelum ni, what kind of analogy that I can...
But I feel like at the end of the day, we need to give a lot of trust in some way to our students lah, kan? Sebab macam takkan you nak leave them behind because there's so many things happening out there, right? So we gotta have to like somewhat give that trust that you can use it.
I mean, before flying was something that was commercial.
Yeah.
Everybody said, "Oh, tak payah terbang, takut terlepas dan sebagainya." Blah blah blah. But eventually, that's what advancements do. Like before this, kalau kita pakai DSLR kan, back in my time, oh, that's not purist and all of that, blah 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 blah. But eventually, everybody changed.
Yeah.
You have to keep up with times. In that sense, you've got to bring it into the classroom. The same with the use of technology. The same with the use of, kalau back in the day, you say, oh, certain art pieces have to be hand-drawn, baru authentic. Nowadays, people just use Canva. Everybody can be a designer. Times have changed, but we need to have regulations, of course, to be able to regulate it, but not to have like a blanket policy or blanket regulation to say everybody don't use it because of the fear of technology and advancements. And I think dia punya effect tu lagi severe lah daripada tu.
I'm talking about like this investment kan. Yeah, we all acknowledge yang kita kena mula. Tapi like, what about the teacher training? Like, are they being taught like that? Because we've mentioned before that we have a lot of great teachers, but then in Malaysia, but that's not most cases because each school is different kan. So like, how are the teachers being equipped right now?
I think okay.
And are they able to go for the demands of the current market?
Oh, that's a very deep topic to go into, madam. Because you are talking about pre-service training.
Yeah.
That's something that could probably take an entire day. But I think, of course, a review should happen. We really need to look at. So if we are saying that what's happening in the classroom now, the demands of the classroom now is different, and how teachers are performing is behind what is expected, then we really need to track back lah. Is the teacher training actually training them to do that? I would love to say that the Ministry of Education has got its processes and all of that, but I think if you want to go into the topic, it's just going to be a lot to talk about. But what I would love to talk about is teacher continuous professional development. I spoke about and all of that, how it does that, because I think equivalent or equal to pre-service teacher training is about how our teachers continually learning. Correct, because what's good teaching 5 years ago or 10 years ago is not necessarily good teaching now. And what's good teaching now is not necessarily good teaching in the next 5 years. So to invest in that is very important.
That's very, very, very important. I do hope that we're able to see these changes in the next few years, because like like you said, investment is always changing. So there has to be some quick response coming from not just the ministry but also everybody else. But before we end the episode, because I think actually we know I want to give you all these questions, right? I'm like,
you know, a few episodes.
If you ever just talk about Samuel about all these education reforms, but at the end of the day, with all the things that are happening right now, do you feel ada rasa hope tak for our education to move forward? Looking at what the statistics now and looking at the development that you are also partaking, how do you feel?
I'm always hopeful. I think we have all the right ingredients to achieve our fullest potential of what our education system can do. But I think what we need to have is a bit more rigor. We spoke a lot about political will, and that's something that's working good. And also on top of that is, I think one of the key things is society's expectations towards our education performance and all of that. To ensure that there is more involvement and all of that, what we need is better comms. The Ministry of Education needs to speak a lot more on their initiatives. There needs to be more and more involvement. There shouldn't be a mismatch between societal expectations and what the Ministry of Education is doing. But there is definitely hope. I think we have a lot of systems in place to do it. But again, I really hope, and what the Ministry of Education is doing right now is better partnerships. I think one of the key areas that we can accelerate whatever changes is through public-private partnerships. That means the Ministry of Education and the government doesn't see that reforms should happen alone. It should involve other important stakeholders as well, CSOs, corporates and all of that to come together to invest in Malaysia's education system. I think we are all patriotic. Everybody who's in Malaysia, we love the country, no matter your background, no matter, Melayu ke Cina ke India ke Sabah, Iban ke Dasar, whatever it is. We want to see this nation prosper and for this nation to do well. And a lot of it goes back into education. So yeah, it needs a whole society. I'm very, very hopeful, and that's why I'm still in this space. I'm still in this space, wanting to contribute towards nation building, wanting to contribute towards the Malaysian education system in general. So I'm always hopeful, definitely.
Right. That's great to hear. I mean, we also highlight the fact that a lot of Malaysians nowadays don't have any more hope for Malaysia. It's like, oh, Malaysia is not going to do so well, so like whatever happens, right? I guess what you bring up regarding that Malaysia, needs to have all these things and is currently going through with these things, and inshallah in the future we can see the outcomes, right? So it's good to hear that Malaysia still has hope and we will get there.
But
in the future.
I also feel like when we're doing the mini series, I think it's also highlighting the behind the scenes lah, what people are doing.
Yeah.
Sebab ramai yang tengok mungkin from the mainstream media, tapi mungkin orang tak ramai perasan yang ramai orang yang tengah membina negara kita with full passion and with full effort. So I rasa it's important that we need to highlight these type of initiative supaya orang akan sekurang-kurangnya cakap, bagi awareness dan menyumbang kepada national discourse.
Of course, and what you guys are doing are fantastic. I think the younger generation, people of your age, step up, ask the questions. Keep on asking. You don't know, ask the questions. I think creating awareness, social media advocacy and all of that is extremely important. Keep the Ministry of Education, whatever ministry there is, on their toes. Keep them accountable. I think
Correct.
as Rakyat, we have that
Power.
obligation
Yeah.
and power to keep them accountable. Keep them accountable. Don't be afraid to just ask the question. But on your part as well, it's also important to make sure that you're informed.
Correct.
Read the policies, understand the policies, look at the data, do comparative analysis of what's going on and all of that. I think we also have that responsibility in this space to not sensationalize, but also to inform responsibly.
Correct.
To discuss based on facts, on figures, based on
Ideas,
ideas and all that. Bukan sembah. I think that is important, and I'm glad what you guys are doing is based on that. That you really need to do your part into it, because at the end of the day, I'm not against certain media outlets that sensationalize things, but it creates a false narrative.
Correct.
And that is very damaging, because currently, if you want to talk about that, the public education space, there is that trust deficit. A lot of people are talking about, sekolah kebangsaan tak bagus. And you tambah lagi petrol, curah lagi, talk more about without doing your homework. I think that is very unfair, because within that space itself, you create panic. You are an alarmist. You create panic about what's happening. So it's important to be responsible and to talk about it based on facts, based on evidence, based on figures. And but it shouldn't stop you from telling the public what you want, what you want for the country. I think that's extreme.
And I think this is one of the reasons why we're doing this mini series, because we just really want people to just really care about education. Because like you said like it takes a village, and I feel like if we don't do it now, who will?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wrap for seminar saya. There's a lot of things we have to, but I feel like there's so many things we have to discuss, but
There's so much, an hour is not enough.
that's not enough. But well, I guess this is what a glimpse of what reforms that we need lah. But of course, if you guys have any other ideas or suggestions, do comment down lah and give us our suggestions. Give us your suggestions about. Sorry, it's just probably me getting tired right now. But this is just give us your suggestion about what type of reforms, and hopefully we can create better discourse. And yeah, tag the ministry as well.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you so much, Samusai, for your time. And thank you for much for your stories, for your ideas. We really appreciate it. Right. So, where can we listen to our podcast?
You can listen to our program on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast.
And you can follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, and also actually we have Facebook too, but we're not that active. But yeah, Facebook as well. And you can follow Samuel. Yeah, sure.
On Samuel Isaiah on Instagram and whatnot, Facebook and all that. And my podcast, The Lesson Plan.
Yeah, definitely watch it, man. I think he gives a more better analysis there. Yeah. But yeah, with that said, we look forward for the next episode. I think we'll be talking about TVET.
What? Apa tu?
TVET.
Nama differentnya. Not for this episode.
Well, we're not specifically talking about TVET. We're talking about e-TVET. This is probably a new term, but we're gonna talk about with who? Kita kena tengok episode seterusnya lah. Alright, see you then. Till then, see you next episode. Bye bye.